Love, light, and blessings. I was going to, when I made the video earlier today, I changed my clothes. I took a shower. I'm getting ready to leave to go traveling. And I decided that I was going to release this video on Saturday because I do want people to watch part one. And when I made the video, I was dressed in black. The video was, it was pretty dark. It was pretty intense. It was pretty raw. It evoked a lot of emotions in my subscribers. I got a lot of private messages. I got a lot of comments on my comment sections for me. I usually don't generate a lot of comments on all my videos. I do get comments, but and this video touched a lot of people. A lot of people shared thoughts. A lot of people shared positive energies. A lot of people shared their own personal stories of how they were victimized, how they were abused, and things of that nature. You know, some people, were like, it was really hard to watch. I came back to it. Someone drew a card for me, was beautiful. The Hoodoo Tarot, which interesting thing about that, the person drew the Justice card and Dr. Buzzard card, and that card, prior to making the video, I drew that card as well, because I do classify myself as a two-headed root doctor, in the sense of, I work both in healing and in non-healing ways when it is justified. Everybody's practice is different, but a lot of my life experience showed me that this world has both light and darkness, and light and shadow, the so-called positive and negative feelings, love, hate, all those things makes the world, and things of that nature. So, I do help people with my spirituality get justice when justice is deserved, when they cannot get justice through any other types of means, and things of that nature. The video really struck a chord with a lot of people, because most of the 29 days of Melanated Excellence was positive. So I decided, there's a police car going by because there's an ambulance, so it's fine. Sorry for that. But, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, the video really touched a lot of people. When the Madama spirit kind of told me that I needed to make that video, I was really afraid. Even though I've been through the process, I did the healing and things like that. I am a human, and I was afraid of how others would view that video. Would others think that I'm being a victim? Would others think that, oh, she's crying? Would that show that I'm weak? Would that break the way that people look at me as this positive person, as this healer, as this strong woman, and things of that nature? And I got so many beautiful comments, and one of the many that really touched me were the stories when people shared how they themselves were abused, and how one of my subscribers said, a lot of people think that the term, and I'm, quoting this person loosely, strong black woman is like, a woman, like a black woman trying to be badass or whatever. But it's really because of the history and the torture and, the things that black women have to deal with on an everyday. Things that brown women have to deal with on the everyday. And I'm not saying that other races of women don't have their own things, because they do. What I'm trying to say is I am my skin color before I am a woman. And I'm not the only one that thinks this way. I've talked to black and brown women that have shared the same sentiments and said yes. Because not only was I attacked on two separate incidents for being a woman, for being seen as weak, I was also attacked by my assailant and by the two officers because of the color of my skin. And I wanted to bring that out, and I don't regret it now, because I got to hear other stories of other women who were attacked at home for merely being a woman, for merely wanting to get out of an abusive relationship. Other people shared racial attacks have happened to them. Other people shared that they were in abusive relationships. One of my subscribers shared that they use their pain and they work with children. And that's beautiful. And empowering. I love it. All this positivity. I made this video because during the 29 days of Melanated Excellence, I had people, when I would talk about racial issues, when it comes to protecting our practices and be careful of oversharing, because they were root doctors and their work was stolen and people publicized book. I mentioned Lucky Mojo and someone got offended by that. And I'm going to be honest, I did delete some comments because, as well-meaning as that person may have been, it was putting down my feelings. It was putting down what I was expressing. And those types of comments, when people put down my feelings, or people are like, you know, you have to understand, if you don't talk about it, it will go away. Comments like that, I automatically deleted out of my channel, because I've been in other people's channels when people try to bring up racial issues, and I've seen how other subscribers attack that person, and there's this like fear of talking about uncomfortable things because they get attacked by people of opposing views. You can agree to disagree with something, but when you're coming off passive aggressive, I'm going to delete your comment. And there's been people I've completely blocked out of my channel, because my comment section will be a safe space. And it doesn't mean that all the comments have to be love, light, and blessings and everything's wonderful. No. But if you're going to lessen somebody's experience, or talk down, or say that if you ignore racism, it will go away, I'm not going to allow that to be on my channel, because that's not empowering at all. Ignoring a problem, the problem is still there. The problem is still there. You know, I used to think that way. When my mom would tell me about certain things, and I'm like, Mom, that was when, you know, that was when you were growing up. People are not that way. And, you know, I was like, you know, there's people that don't see color. We all see color. And that's not a bad thing, but we all see color. Some people use it to destroy people, but some people we just see color. You see a red light when you cross the street. You see a green light. You see a yellow light. You see all that stuff. For those of us that have physical vision, we see color, unless we're physically blind, you know. Now there's some people that see color and they have prejudices and stereotypes associated with that, and there's some people that see color and they want to be an ally, or so on and so forth, and they don't agree with certain things. But we all see color if we have vision. So ignoring a problem will not solve the problem. It's when we have these uncomfortable conversations and these raw feelings come to surface. You know, for a long time, even after the attack, I lived in darkness. You know, and I realized when I got my kids back and I started working with other people, and I allowed the year after this incident for these assailants and this sexual abuse, I couldn't control how they treated me that day. A racist is a racist is a racist. A sexist is a sexist is a sexist. An abuser is an abuser. But I allowed them to have power over my life when I blamed the father of my daughter for what they did. When I filled myself up with hate and said hateful things that I would have never said to this person had those things never happened. I blamed him as if he's accountable for a whole race of people. I blamed my attacker and the police officers as if they were representatives of a whole race of people. And that's why I said stereotypes can be deadly and can be harmful. I cannot base judgment on three separate individual people because they're just some people. Not all that group of people, not all those people are racist. There are people that looked like them that marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. Because not only were there brown people that marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, there were also white allies that marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. There were also white people that were hosed down with black people when they were fighting for civil rights. You know? So that's what I had to work through. And I didn't forgive my attacker nor those two racist cops in the sense of you are forgiven and I'm going to forget about it and what you did was justified. When I used the term forgive, it was never about them. It was me having to take the hate out of my heart. This hate that was consuming me. This hate that prevented me from doing what I love the most. And that's psychic reading, spiritual counseling, using my spiritual services to heal others, helping people manifest the things that they want and things of that nature. They were taking that away from me. The most important thing, my children, and me not being able to be a caretaker because I couldn't even take care of myself. Me being filled with self-hate, me internalizing what happened and somehow blaming myself, and me lashing out on the man that I love. And it wasn't until I decided and said, I don't forgive what they did. I would never excuse what they did. There's no excuse to cause violence and destruction on a person who's never done anything to you. But I will forgive in the sense that I will let go of my anger. I'm going to let go of my anger. I'm going to face these feelings that I have. I'm going to be willing to do the work that it takes so that I can start my journey in healing. And I started working on going to therapy. I had someone that for a year was working with me and had similar diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had depression, but I wasn't predisposed to depression when prior to this incident. My depression, like I had, a bout of like, they call it the baby blues, so postpartum depression. But then I was able to kind of, mine wasn't as severe as some people. Like mine's, after a couple of months, I was able to be back to myself. So I had temporary episodes of depression. And this one was conditional. It was due to the attack that I had, and the police officers like 10 times amplified that. So I had like a peer counselor, and she helped me. Like I had to do therapies like going out in public, and how I would feel uncomfortable simply going to the supermarket and being around other people. So she did some exposure therapy for me. She helped me to make my appointments for seeing a sexologist and for getting therapy. I also got therapy in domestic violence, and I learned what are the red flags when you are in abusive relationships, because prior to my youngest daughter's father, I was in an abusive relationship. And there's different forms of abuse. So my first husband, he became abusive after he came back from deployment. He would get episodes where he would think that he was still in war, and he would talk to me as if I wasn't me. So it was like he was, because there was like a lot of like bombing going on at that time and things like that. So he would talk to me as if I was the person he was fighting against in the Middle East, not his wife. So he would like lose time and go back into the war mode and become violent in that way. For instance, there was a time that I was sleeping and I woke up to this. But then the next day he had no recollection of it. And that's why I left, because it was, they weren't episodes where he actually remembered, and the military did not provide the mental support that when they put these soldiers into these very stressful combat situations, a lot of them don't come back mentally okay. So it wasn't like he was doing that to me before, and I'm not excusing, there's no excuse for violence. And the reason why I left was because he refused to get therapy. When I would confront him about it, he wanted to, like the people that make comments, if you don't talk about it, it'll go away. He had that mentality too. No, if we don't talk about the fact that you're having a mental crisis, and not all people that have emotional issues are violent, just in his case, it was causing that because of the experiences that he had. He really thought he was still in war. He used to have to go to sleep with the sound of bombs going on in the background. So he did intensive therapy, but I had to separate from him to cause him to have a reaction, because I did not want him around my children. And it took a lot of years for me to have the relationship that I have with him. He has not been violent to my children, and he wasn't a violent person prior to these incidents. You know, he had to get help with his post-traumatic stress disorder and the things that he was doing. So I just wanted to put that out there. I never will condone domestic violence. Like I said, there's never an excuse. So I forgave him in the sense of, I'm not going to forget what you did. That's why I never got back with you. But, okay, you've gone to therapy, you've gone on medication, you're dealing with your anger issues. You've proven to me that you're not going to be a danger to my children. I will allow access under supervision, things of that nature, you know, because you have to take your precautions. So I kind of just wanted to make that disclaimer. And so with my youngest daughter's father, the damage was already done with the marriage. But I didn't go into therapy to save that relationship. I went into therapy so when I was if I ever wanted to be in a relationship, I was able to have good skills. Okay, good skills and things of that nature. Also inspired me to go back to school. And I got a degree in social work because I wanted to help other people. I went back into doing readings. And I fixed our relationship in the sense of, I let him go and I said, I became abusive to you. Was he a saint? No. We both did our things, but this is about me here. I'm going to take 50% of the blame in the sense I also was using abusive language and I was taking all this anger out. And you allowed the anger to consume you and you started going into self-destruction mode. And he also, wasn't willing to get help. And I was like, I would not be in an unhealthy relationship. You know, I could empathize with the fact that he blames himself for these two incidents and things of that nature, but I cannot allow my children to grow up in a toxic environment. So I'm always a mother first before I'm a woman. So that's why I left. And it's okay to walk away from an unhealthy situation. That is not a failure. At the end of the day, I learned that I have to do the things that are right for me. And so when people come to me for relationships and things like that, I can 1000% empathize. I've had a lot of women that have come to me in abusive relationships and things like that, and I can empathize with that woman and I can show them or show him the outcomes of these relationships spiritually through my social work degree. This is what's going to happen if you stay, but if you leave, this is what's going to happen. And I allow my clients to make decisions. We talk. So I do provide predictions. I do show you your future, but I also provide counseling in my readings. I also provide a safe space. There's nothing that I've ever read about or nothing that I will ever read about that you will ever feel, and you can see that in my reviews, You can see that from the clients that I work with. They will tell you, I have absolutely no preconceived notions or judgments of anybody. I respect everybody's life journey and where everybody is in their place. I don't sit here and lecture. I don't sit here and judge. You can ask me any type of question because of the things I've been through. I've come from a place of non-judgment. Prior to these things, I'm human. I had preconceived notions. Well, if such and such is abusing you, why don't you leave? And yeah, I've been through some racist situations, but we got to move forward and da 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 da. And then when I became a victim of that, I said, wait a minute, maybe we haven't come as far as I thought we did. You see what I'm saying? So, these situations, I took back my power by growing in my spirituality, understanding that there's a time for the right-handed path and there's a time for the left-handed path. There's a time to heal and there's a time to curse. There's a time to be positive and be all in this love and light, and then there's times that you're allowed to get angry. There's times that you're allowed to speak and show these emotions. How many people have come to me, I want to manifest things, so I'm going to stay in the positive, because if you say negative, negative attracts negative. And sometimes people take that so far as when they're having negative feelings, they push them down inside, and that's not healing. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm angry. I'm disgusted. This person hurt me. It's okay to cry. And that was part of my healing process. I allowed myself to cry. But at the same time, I said, you're allowed to cry for this amount of time, because these people are not going to win. I'm going to get my kids back. I'm going to get my business back. I'm going to live my best life. I would not allow myself to stay a victim, but instead I want to transition to a survivor. And when my Loa came to me, the Black Madonna, and I had these suicidal thoughts, and she showed me my future, which I'm living right now, and I know the rest of it will happen. You know what I mean? It was impossible at that moment for me to even believe it. And I remember that day when she came to me, my mom called me and she said, I had a dream with the Black Madonna. There was no way she would know that the Black Madonna materialized herself to me. And she said, I just want you to know that God wants you to be here. That Mary wants you to be here. Like his mother wants you to be here. And that's when I told my mom, because she didn't even know my kids weren't with me, about the incident that happened. I wanted to protect her, not tell her. It was like I was still blaming myself at that time. And my mom was a pillar for me. And then later on, because I had my Indio at that time. I already had my Indian spirit at that time. My Black Madonna came after that. I got this beautiful gorgeousness. She came into my life, La Madama. And I started to see and understand my group of Madamas, which some are blood relatives and others are ancestral spirits, because I have more than one Madama. And she said to me, this is a ancestral trauma that has been in your family and is generational. Many of the women in your family have been raped, have been silenced. But you can do something that we couldn't do. And I thought about my great-grandmother being 9 years old and having to be in a legal contract with a European man to be his woman, and he's an adult and she's 9, and how her mother was a victim of rape, and that's how she was the byproduct of that. And I thought about my grandmother who was passing, who married a European man and was able to marry because she changed the identification of her ID card to white instead of colored. And he knew who she was. He knew her mother, and he tried to beat that out of her. You know what I mean? And her walking away and meeting my grandfather and having one of her children actually be a product of love. And at that time she couldn't get a divorce. She had to go back to her husband, because then it's like divorce is unheard of. You know what I mean? You can't love somebody that has the same coloring as you, because we have to improve the race and all this stuff. And my mother was a product of all this self-hate and colorism within my own family. And she was talking to me. And she said, we have to make those men accountable. And so even though I didn't go public with it, and I made a deal, which I said I can't get into too intricate into what happened, but let's just say not only did I take care of it in the spiritual court and with root work, but I also took care of it legally. I did both. And they were made to pay for what they did, as long as I did not publicize who they were. They were so afraid of the backlash if this were ever to become public that they were willing to take the consequences of what was given to them. So I did make them pay, but mentally and emotionally, I didn't want to go on TV. And I because at the same time, as much as I wanted them to pay, as much as a lawsuit would have been great, and I respect everybody who does that, mentally at that time, I could not keep reliving the same situation, because when you go to court, you have to keep saying the same story. And I couldn't do it. I had to not worry about what everybody else thought, but I would do this and I would do that, and I respect that. But that wasn't right for me, because mentally I couldn't do it, and I wanted to go through this process privately. Doesn't mean now that I would do the same thing. I don't know. Maybe now that I'm older, I probably would have done the lawsuit. You know what I mean? But then that's not how I was thinking. Again, I got my children back. My business was double time stronger when I had to start from scratch on the online site, because, if you disappear for a certain amount of time, your clients go to other people. I got my existing clients to come back. I drew in more clients. I became one of the top rated psychics on there. I made a sustainable living. I was able to fully support myself through my readings and things of that nature. And then about 2.5 years ago, it'll be 3 years in this June, I went into my own business, still was in the psychic hotline, still was doing readings from the clients that I drew from YouTube. And then after that first year, able to leave the psychic hotline and fully dedicate myself to YouTube, because then this became a sustainable business. So the spirits kept their promise. If I stood in that darkness, if I stood in that hate, I would have never achieved what I achieved now. Getting my children back, being able to be a healer, being able to hold space for all those individuals that have been through a lot of things. I drew strength from the Black Madonna. I drew strength from my native spirits. I drew strength from knowing their stories, that they have also been through a lot of things, and that we cannot be silenced to injustices. We cannot remain passive when we see somebody being attacked. We need to say something. We need to, hey, that's wrong. It's okay to stand up for injustices. It's okay to understand that, yes, we've come a long way, but there's still people that think this way, and they need to be held accountable. We cannot justify that, oh, that's how they were brought up. Oh, it's just a colorful joke. No. After this incident, when people will make some little jokes around me, I'm like, that's not funny. And I'm going to correct you, because I learned to have a voice. And that's when people try to, oh, you need to stop talking about that. Oh, sis, no, this, that, and the other. No, I'm not going to be quiet, because I've earned the right to speak my truth. And there's so much more people that love the content, that love that I hold space, they love that I speak out about things that make people uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, until we face a problem, we're not going to find a solution to it. Until we face a problem, we're not going to be able to treat it, because racism is an illness. It's an actual illness, and it's destructive. And if you brush that illness under the rug, if we do that, how will we ever be able to treat that? Sexism is an illness. How many times have women been raped, sexually abused, domestic violent, hit, and we say, why didn't she leave? She's stupid. I wouldn't do that. Um, well, maybe she asked for it. I've heard all kinds of comment from both genders. Because sometimes women aren't always loving to other women. You know, society doesn't tries to find a way to justify certain actions that other people take. And that goes in the other way. There's men that have been in relationships that I've worked with that, oh, men cannot be raped. Men cannot be sexually abused. Men cannot be in a domestic violence relationship. That's not true. There are women that think it's okay. Oh, I'm a woman, man can't hit me, so slap him in the mouth. Why are you slapping him in the face? Because if a man did it to you, then it's, oh my God, it's domestic violence. Let's call the cops. In the same way that that's violent, it's not okay because you're a woman to go slapping people around. You know, I had a client, he's allowing me to say that as long as I don't say his name. He was in a relationship where the woman literally not only started to beat him up, and the cops would never believe him and thought it was funny. Whenever he tried to call the police to protect himself because he didn't want to hit her, he's like, I don't want to go to jail. She ended up stabbing this guy. You know, he's alive and everything, but I'm just saying. So that's another thing too. Like, men can be abused. Men can be abused. And things of that nature. This is why these topics are so important. And as a healer, I wanted to say my truth. But I felt that it would be justified. It would be a good thing to do the 29 days of Melanated Excellence and conclude it with this video instead of the previous video I recorded, because I wanted to end it on a positive note. I wanted to let you guys know that even though I was very emotional in today's video, the prior video I made to this, I don't cry about it every single day. I allowed myself to cry in the video because that's okay. Because at first I was like, maybe I should no, let the tears fall, because when you cry, that's not weakness. That's not because I'm living in that sadness. Tears can also be a triumph. Like I was thinking when I was making that video, I was reliving it, but I was also thinking like, wow, listening to myself speak this, it made it real. Listening to myself retell the story, it made me imagine all the people, men and women, who've ever been in an abusive situation, and it made me empathize. Like, I know I'm not the only one that's ever felt this fearful, and I know that this message is going to be healing for many. And after today, I'm not talking about this anymore in the sense of I was able to let go any residual pain that I may have still had. And to me, my tears were a sign of valor and of strength. Like, wow, if I could live through these situations, I could live through anything. And so when I was crying, it also made me feel strong. It made me feel like, yes, you know, I'm allowing myself to feel my emotions. I'm not going to censor my emotions. I'm not going to make a pretty video, you know. I'm going to allow myself to re-feel those pains and to share that and to uncensor it. Because maybe the other person on the other side, maybe that just happened to them and they're still in the darkness, or they're still with that self-hate, or they're still hating the person who did that to them, or they're still a victim and they don't know how to fix their life. And this is one of the reasons why I am going to be offering spiritual counseling readings, which are not predictive, but more about counseling and working through these types of issues through tarot and through my experiences as a social worker. I am going to be offering those services next month. I'm creating how I want that to go, and things of that nature, because I feel like I can use this to help others, so that we no longer have to live in that pain. When I was going through the darkness, I remembered my mom marching against injustices when she was a college student, and she marched with the Young Lords, which were a group of people that wanted to end the racial and systematic racism that Afro-Latinos and Latinos, Puerto Ricans were going through in the Bronx when they refused to pick up our garbage, and when they allowed the buildings to be dilapidated and help us live in these conditions. When I showed my daughter the way the Bronx was in the 80s and things like that, she thought we were looking at a third world country. Because yes, America has places in it that look like third world countries. Okay, so when they're showing us parts of the other parts of the world, we have poverty-stricken places here in the United States like that. But that's the stuff the media don't show you, because they always want to show America as this perfect place. We have our own issues in this country as well. We have a difference in education. When I came to this country, my education was in the South Bronx. When I went to other more prestigious places and saw the kind of elementary schools they had versus the asbestos filled schools that I had, there was a time in the Bronx that we didn't go to school for a whole month because they found asbestos and the school had lead paint in it. And it wasn't just my school, it was several schools in the Bronx when I was growing up. They literally, kids were eating lead, and for the rest of their life they have learning disabilities. They didn't have schools like that in the suburb. We had the books when I was growing up from the 60s. The history starts in the 60s. You know, books that were written up, books that look like trash. But my cousins who went to more, they lived in more nicer neighborhoods in the suburbs, they had brand new pristine textbooks. But we all live in New York. And it's not even when I was younger. There was issues with my son when he had autism. I'll make another video about that, how they will handle his situation versus my other counterpart friends in more affluent neighborhood. So there is this economic oppression that still goes on, and these are things that I like talking about, because how can we change something if we refuse to face it? How can we change hate if we refuse to talk about it? My mother chose, instead of saying, hey, this is acceptable, to march with the Young Lords. She chose to march with the Black Panthers. She became a civil rights activist. My mother in Hostos Community College in the South Bronx, which is what I talked about in the previous video, which I'm just going to condense it into this one. Her face is forever immortalized because she was one of the students that thought it was unfair that the only minority college with a population of Latino immigrants, Puerto Ricans, and Black students was being closed down due to lack of funding. They took over the college. They did marches. They had a sit down, which it's actually, my mom made history when she did that. And to this day, they dedicated a mural to my mom and the other students that she took part in this protest to keep the school open. My biological father was a civil rights activist. He always believed in the independence of Puerto Rico and the gaining more political power in Puerto Rico, because it's, to this day, it's still a colony. And that's why they gave me a very indigenous name, my parents, because they were both involved in politics and marches in the revolution, you know what I mean, and things like that. So when I went through that dark period, I remembered what my ancestors before me went through. And I realized that I am standing on their shoulders. So now that things have gotten better in the sense that I'm more able to speak out about it, I'm going to do what they couldn't do then. And then I want my daughters and my sons to do what I can't do now. And if we continue to allow our children and this future generation to have that voice, I do believe, and you could call me rainbows and lollipops, that we can make things better, that we can make things move forward. Our civil rights, our fight for equality of the genders did not end when Obama became president, because once he left office, we're seeing a whole new face of racism, a whole new generation of racism. And we cannot remain silent when there's children in cages. Even if they don't look like you, they're human. And whether you believe in closed borders or open borders is not the point. There is a humane way that we can treat people. Because at the end of the day, they're still human. We're all human. At the end of the day, we don't have to put up with, well, you're just a woman, as my landlord once told me. And I corrected him and said, no, I am not just a woman. I am the woman, And he didn't like that I said that. He looked at me. I'm not going to stay quiet. You mad sexist for no reason. Saying that the only reason you had to come here to fix something because I don't have a husband. Seriously? Anyways. So, you know what I mean? We don't have to be quiet when someone says these things. We are allowed to have our voice and say, I'm not going to accept your behavior. We're in 2020 and we're going to move forward, And I'm proud. Like my oldest daughter did a walkout against gun violence, So this is what I'm saying. Like, I do believe in healing ancestral wounds. I do believe in talking about these things, but not for the purposes of just being angry and that's it. But now what can I do in my personal journey to make it better for the future generations so that they, you know what I mean? And I feel like if we do that, I feel like you can end racism eventually. I don't feel that's something we should accept. Well, society's just racist, No, I used to think that way. Oh, and then, talking to my daughter and having certain experience, she's like, Mommy, no. Like, you know what I mean? We don't have to accept being followed in the store. You know what I mean? We don't have to accept, people just think we're loud and brown and da-da-do. Like, no. No, and we also don't have to be perfect. Like, we don't have to have the burden of, so because I acted a certain way, I'm going to represent a whole race of people. Like, no. Brown people are their own individual people. Like, you know what I mean? I don't represent my whole race. They don't represent their whole race. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what? Are you serious? So, and I've been guilty of that. Don't act up in the store because they're going to say brown children act a certain way. Like, I've done it. You know what I mean? It's something I'm still working through. And things of that nature. So, I just feel like that video needed to be made, and I wanted to end it that even though we have a long way to go, progress has been made, but there's work still to be done. We still have to work together. Like Rihanna said in her speech, tell your friends to stand up. You're sitting here empathizing for other causes, but what about your other friends? Are they empathizing with yours? You know what I mean? Are they standing with you against these things? And that's a very valid question. So like I said, even though I ended my relationship because I felt like it just on both ends was just like not where I wanted to be. I learned what a relationship needs to be, and I offer that to my clients, what a healthy relationship is supposed to be. And I was able to have that with him even after we broke up and co-parent together and things like that. And that's why I feel like those life experiences have come in handy. I can't even count on my hands anymore how many marriages I've saved with my readings, with the counseling that I've provided for people, and things like that. How many women have or men have been inspired to get out of toxic relationships because of the readings that I've given. How many people have said, before I met you I was suicidal and things like that, and through your readings, like, you gave me the power to seek help, you gave me the power to do the work, you made me feel empowered, you didn't sit there and feel bad. And sometimes my daughter's like, why are you like that? It's not that I don't empathize with somebody, but I also want to teach her how to be a strong woman, because yes, you can be sad, but now what can we do to get our power back? So you're gonna cry, but then we're gonna get solutions. Let's get solutions. How are we gonna fix this problem? And I know sometimes she's like, yeah, and sometimes she's like, oh my god, my mom's so annoying. Like, why can't she just hug me right now? So you know what I mean? But it is what it is. But yeah. So I kind of wanted to share that and say that I'm okay. Thank you so much for the prayers. I just felt like I didn't want to censor the video, and I cried in it and everything else, but I wanted to let you know I did heal from that situation. I didn't forgive them like, oh yeah, you did. No, I would never justify what they did to me. I forgave them in the sense of, I want to let go of my hate towards you and this anger that's pretty much keeping me paralyzed in this situation where I'm not getting help that I need. I'm just sitting in anger and in hate. And so I forgive you in the sense of I want to let it go so that I can move forward. But at the same time, I'm still going to make sure that you're accountable for your actions. Like that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and hug somebody that like murdered somebody. No offense. Like, everybody could do what they want to do, but like, I'm not going to sit here and hug. That's not me. I'm going to take that to the spirits, and I'm going to take that to the law, and I'm not going to say, I forgive. No, you did something and you're going to pay for that. So maybe I could use the word, I don't know, the video pause for a second. So maybe I could use the term forgiveness of like letting things go, not forgiving the action, if that makes sense. So that's all I wanted to say in this video. This is like a long one, but I wanted to conclude 29 days of melanated excellence and feature my mother, who I think is a beautiful woman who, again, marched with civil rights people, went back to the islands, had me, yay, came back here when I was 5. She's still very active in politics. She's still very pro, black. She's still very pro civil rights. She's still very pro Afro-Latino, Puerto Rico, the Caribbean, and all that beautiful stuff, and things of that nature. She's still very outspoken about her politics. And I think that's where I get that from, that I just can't be quiet about stuff. I have to let you know how I feel about certain things. Like it comes from my mama, and things of that nature. So if you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis, shamanic@priestess.com. And you can book me for a psychic reading. I connect to your past, present, and future. I can give you time frames. And I also put in my site now a spiritual investigation, like a minimal one. If you want to take it for longer, you can just book a regular reading for that. But I figured this is how much time I kind of need to give you a good read, at least to touch on the spirits and things of that nature. So the price is there. And then I have a separate one for pre-consultations. If you want me to do any type of root work for you, I always require that we do a pre-consultation so we can discuss pricing, because depending how complex your work is, everybody's price is going to be different because it's the complexity of your case. I also feel like the spirits will be honest about the situation, because I tend to notice that sometimes people may leave certain things out, and the spirits will give me that important information. They'll let me know if I can help you and how I can help you. So that's why that's going to be on there. 10 minutes is not enough to discuss a spell work. So that's why we have a separate price for that. And then readings on anything else, love, money, anything else, just the regular reading packages are still there. In March, around March and stuff like that, I'm going to create some workshops, and things like that for spiritual counseling services. And things like that, if you want to work with me on certain issues, which are going to require more than one counseling session. So I'm working out price points and how I want that to go, and things of that nature. So, okay, guys, I think that's it for the updates to my website and some upcoming things that we're going to be doing. Love you guys so much. Happy Black History Month. This whole melanated vlog has been so successful, has been so great. You guys have given me the best feedback with a few exceptions, and I thank you guys so much. And I think I might do it again next year. So okay, so I wanted to end it in my smiling face and my positive notes. I feel so much better doing that video and purging a lot of stuff, and I'm going to continue on this healing journey. Much love, much light, much blessing. Bye, guys.